dreaded direct-to-video. This is where washed-up action stars would get a second chance. Guys like Dolph Lundgren would crank out 2 to 3 movies a year, just to collect dust on the shelves of your local Blockbuster. Steven Seagal was in 25 movies in the 2000s. There's a good chance you saw none of them. Then, streaming killed Blockbuster, but provided opportunities in its own way, to a point where now, direct-to-streaming movies sometimes get nominated for awards. Netflix's remake of All Quiet on the Western Front was nominated for like 8 Oscars, and Power of the Dog won for Best Director. So now, a movie not getting a theatrical release isn't the worst thing that could happen. It can still find an audience, and when you hear direct-to-streaming, you don't think, "Oh, great, another crappy action movie starring a fat old martial artist." No, the worst thing to happen to movies right now is making them for Warner Brothers and not getting released at all. So, Warner Brothers Discovery, the recently merged super conglomerate that owns DC Comics, HBO, CNN, AT&T, basically everything but your mother, but give it a few years and they might own her too, isn't doing so well. Their stock is down 56% since the merger. They lost 2.5 million streaming subscribers in a 6-month period this year, and they need to figure out a way to save a few bucks. So hopefully your mom's cheap. No. So they figured out, hey, if we don't release some of these movies that we made that were gonna tank at the box office anyway, we could pay less in taxes. And so, movies that were practically complete, including Batgirl, some Scooby-Doo movie, and most recently, Coyote vs. Acme, have been shelved. Again, these movies were basically done. Not in pre-planning stages, not mid-filming. You could release them tomorrow and they'd be viewable. They recently announced that they've reversed their decision on Coyote vs. Acme, but said that they'll allow it to be shopped around. So in other words, if another studio offers enough money to buy it, which they could set pretty much any price, then it'll get released. Otherwise, back on the shelf. This has resulted in people calling for it to be released into the public domain, because you see, it was going to be used for a $30 million tax write-down. They should be public domain. For Coyote vs. Acme, $30 million in our tax dollars will be stolen from US citizens when they write it off on their taxes. If a movie is shelved for tax write-off like WB has with Batgirl and Coyote vs. Acme, then the public now owns that property, as taxpayers entirely funded it. I saw a ton of these posts. Once a really popular account suggests it, tons of small ones all start parroting it. But, that's not really how tax write-offs work. All of this reminds me of the Seinfeld scene where Kramer and Jerry are arguing about a write-off, but neither know what it actually means. Let me explain. Let's say you make $50,000 in income a year, and you effectively have to pay 20% of that back in income tax. So $10,000 goes to taxes. But you had some medical bills that cost you $5,000. So you write that off. That means you actually only pay income tax on $45,000. The government basically pretends like you never earned that other $5,000. So instead, you pay $9,000 in taxes. So now you didn't pay an extra $1,000. It doesn't mean you get $5,000 back for writing off the $5,000. Nor does that mean that any taxpayers gave you money. The taxpayers weren't giving WB $30 million. Your income tax, whether you paid $10,000 or $9,000, isn't going into the Warner's Tax Dodge Fund. Instead, Warner gets to say, we made $30 million less than we actually did, so we don't have to pay taxes on that. It should be noted that their revenue last year was $33.8 billion. So, it would be the equivalent of you getting to write off about $40 on your taxes, saving you about $6 based on our earlier hypothetical. So, that's the reason they should just release the fucking thing. Not because you paid for it, you didn't. Please don't embarrass yourself by pretending that's how these things work. But because it's ultimately such a fucking drop in the bucket. Them going, oh, we'll save money by not releasing this, is the equivalent of you not buying Starbucks once a week and thinking, oh, this will help me buy a house. You saving an extra $364 a year isn't getting you a house. Again, Warner lost 2.5 million subscribers in 6 months, a potential revenue loss of $225 million over that 6 months, nearly $500 million over a year. And their answer is to not release things that might get people to either resubscribe or at least not unsubscribe. Now listen, I ain't no fancy CEO, I never went to no business school, but I can tell you right now, if I just stopped releasing videos for a dose of Buckley and everyone unsubscribed from my Patreon, it wouldn't take a Harvard degree to figure out why. Maybe that's why they didn't want to release Coyote vs. Acme. Wile E. Coyote's method of trying the same stupid, futile shit to catch a roadrunner, never deviating from the plan or considering that he might be the one in his own way, reminds Warner CEO David Zaslav too much of his own shitty business acumen. Guess we'll never know though, since they won't fucking release it. Congrats on saving a few bucks in taxes though, WB. I'm really looking forward to seeing the movie that you ultimately make with the money you saved. Oh, hold on. I'm getting word that it's been shelved for a tax write-off too. A couple months after I released that video, it was reported that Netflix, Amazon, and Paramount all made offers to buy Coyote vs. Acme. Paramount said they'd even distribute it to theaters. But I'm guessing, whatever those offers were, it wasn't the $75 to $80 million that WB wanted. Bezos couldn't just cough up the $80 million? He could have easily become the most beloved billionaire. Well, second most. For now. But anyway, WB is now apparently going to delete the movie. Literally go to the folder on the server titled Coyote vs. Acme, hit the delete button on the keyboard, and walk away whistling. Job done. Film wiped out for good. Which of course has a lot of people upset. Please, anyone just leak Coyote vs. Acme. Sad face emoji. The Coyote vs. Acme situation has broken my spirit in immeasurable ways, and I'm not even involved on the project. I can't imagine how everyone who has been tirelessly fighting for it must feel. Petition for Mr. Beast to buy the rights to the film and release it on his YouTube channel. Seriously, I'm not sure there's any other way people are going to be able to see it at this point. Yeah, Mr. Beast can spend $70 million, which he just has laying around, to make $250,000 from Elon by uploading it to Twitter. That'd be a good business deal. But that's the thing, guys. I get this sucks. But this is business. The last Looney Tunes movie they released was Space Jam 2. You didn't go see that. It lost money. So, the suit said, wait, we're releasing another Looney Tunes movie? The last one tanked. No one wants to see those. And, logically, they'd be right. Which makes this whole outcry feel like a baby screeching over having a toy taken out of their crib that they weren't playing with. Now you care? Because why? Some of the cast members have said it's actually really good. Not sure if you know this, but you don't get much work in Hollywood by telling people that your movies suck. Dakota Johnson said Madam Web was good. In fact, she said it was so good, you'd want to see it twice. You didn't see it once. Will Forte, one of the stars of the movie who likely stands to get some box office back end if it's actually released, put out a statement saying it's incredible and that even though the studio can do whatever they want with their movie, he fucking hates that it'll get deleted, and ends it with a message to the cast and crew that you would be so proud of it, a movie that should be seen but won't. Please know that all the years and years of hard work, dedication, and love that you put into this movie shows in every frame. That's very nice, but is that any consolation? It's like telling caterers, hey, so I know you didn't get to have any of this meal you served because the greedy pricks who hosted this party asked to have all the leftovers thrown in the trash immediately before you could touch them, which they have every right to do. I have to say that because I still want to work with those greedy fucks, I mean wonderful executives someday again. But just know, it was absolutely delicious. You should be very proud. Anyway, at this point, WB should just release it. It's a win-win for them. If it succeeds, they can go, well, this was the greatest marketing ploy ever. Just tell people they can't have it, and then they're frothing at the mouth like rabid dogs to see a Looney Tunes courtroom drama. We'll have to do this more often. And if it fails, they get to say, "See, I told you it wouldn't make any money." Oh, do business people know more than the Twitter mouthpieces about business? Who would have thought? But without releasing it, it's the most immersive Wile E. Coyote experience ever for fans. Now you know what it's like to want something so badly, even though you have other options, that it becomes your singular focus to have that thing and that thing only, and being cruelly taunted when you can never ever have it. Meep meep, motherfuckers.
The Majority Report got a pretty deranged call today. Besides, the only segment that I had left to talk about was that Taylor Swift one, so I guess in the meantime...
That Israel has a right to exist because it does?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so let me clarify those comments. Let me clarify those comments. So I probably should have been more clear that I do not believe that the Israeli people that live there, not the illegal settlers, but the Israeli people that live there should be expelled. I believe in a one-state democratic solution in which Arabs, Palestinians, and Jews in the region live together under a democratic system. Does that clarification satisfy your criticism?
Well, my issue is with like supporting the continued existence of a settler colonial project.
Which I don't.
Well, I mean, you mean the state of it, or are you talking about it like in its current form?
And that's the other thing, Sam. Like your whole.
Well, wait. No, I'm
answering. The question that you just raised was my second point, where you're trying to redefine what anti-Zionism is as anti-apartheid. Apartheid is just a tool of settler colonialism, right?
Okay, so now you answer my question. What is it that you're actually proposing?
So to be clear, okay, Zionism, broadly speaking, means like a political belief in the existence of a Jewish state where Israel is now. A big component of Zionism is the belief that it should be a Jewish state, like controlled by Jews, whether that means like an ethno-state or like an apartheid system or whatever else. That is a big component of Zionism, implicitly or explicitly. However, right, like there is a world, maybe not the one we live in or ever will live in, but there is a world, hypothetically, where you could have a kind of like democratic, pluralist, Palestinian-Israeli union in the state or whatever. The main issue is that like we're dealing in compromises here, right? Like the kind of person who would say that the only way to fix things in Israel is to literally just like remove all the Jews from the region, leaving aside the problems with that. Like this is the same as saying like we need to give all of America back to indigenous people. It's just a, like, totally disconnected from reality, super extreme position that's taken because it's the logical conclusion of a very rigid framework where your opposition is not only to colonialism broadly, but also to any system formed in a colonial context. The problem is, basically all systems everywhere have been formed in a colonial context, so applying this logic worldwide would basically just mean resetting every map, border system, whatever else, which would in practice, of course, lead to an immediate and global, like, catastrophic war that would consume the planet and end all life on Earth. Like, Jesus Christ, you know? We're in this much of a fuss over a border dispute happening in the Middle East, okay? You do this everywhere at once? You kidding me? It's just, it's not reality. It's not practical. It's not, like, you know, it's not... The real question is, what can we actually do to make the world a better place and life better for Palestinians? And there's a hell of a lot that we can do to improve conditions for the Palestinians. But this, like, I don't know. We'll see what the guy says, right?
To actually support decolonization.
Okay.
To support the complete dismantling of settler colonialism.
Okay. So can you be more specific
Please.
In this instance? Like, what are you saying? You're saying expulsion of all of expulsion of all of the individuals living there whose ancestry was not from that place. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not doing the whole like white genocide, you know, remove all Europeans, right? I'm not supporting that.
Okay,
What I'm saying,
I'm asking you.
Well, you asked me a question.
Answer what I'm asking. Yes, answer.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
It's your questions are rooted in a Eurocentric mind frame. That's why I had to like dispel that first, right? So I'm not supporting like this image of a white genocide of removing all Europeans from the area. But what I am supporting is dismantling the whole structure, right? We've seen in South Africa, you could like remove the so-called apartheid state with the people that still own the means of production, that still holds power and resources, are still the Europeans.
Okay.
Okay. So after removing the system of apartheid, you would then want to redistribute resources and have a kind of like reformative justice system where you try to not only get rid of the like obvious legal apartheid system, but also like all of the underlying systems that have been caused by it, you know, to equitably distribute land and wealth, right? I think that Sam Cedar would 100% agree with that, right? Get rid of the apartheid and then address the massive socioeconomic disparity between Palestinians and Israeli Jews. I think he'd agree with that.
You have to dismantle that aspect of it in order to actually succeed in a decolonization process, right?
Okay.
We see it here. We see it here, right? Sure, Native Americans have sovereignty to a limited extent, but it's still a settler colonial project that you benefit from more so than the indigenous people,
right?
And
agreed.
You know, new Africans, right?
Yeah, and I think most left-leaning people would agree that Native American people in America today are monstrously mistreated and are also suffering massively due to long-standing deprivation, which is a product of policies the government, you know, did and continues to maintain. And for that reason, even if we don't literally have like a legal system of apartheid with Native Americans, though again, like even then the reservation system kind of does have some real weirdness there. But, you know, like, yeah, so it should be like restitution, right? Yeah, that seems fine. Okay.
Okay.
So you would also support the dismantling of not just the U.S. empire, but the U.S. settler colonial project as well here, right?
So again, so what does that mean? Again, it's like the deference to these really, really vague general terms. What does that mean, though? They can't be specific because they just know buzzwords.
Okay, so if I understand what you're calling for is you're talking about essentially a massive wealth transfer as well, not necessarily expelling all of the individuals from that area, but rather a wealth transfer. And by what means would you do it?
Well, I mean, come on. Like,
that is a good argument.
Fanon has talked about this.
Wait, who?
Well, I mean, come on. Like, Fanon has talked about this.
Oh, I thought he said Hassan because I paused mid-sentence there.
You have Matt Leck there, right? Like, he's always jumping in.
Oh, no, but I mean,
so it is violent. Yes, it is violent. Okay. It's always violent. You know this.
Okay. Oh no, I mean,
why are you playing?
I'm not playing. I'm asking you a question. I mean,
well, look, you invoke me to jump in.
There we go.
In South Africa. I mean, I think like Malay.
New Africans. Did you catch how we snuck that in? Yeah, I'm sure there's some weirdness there, but I can only like touch on what's really like elaborated on the video. This is the Fanon he's talking about, France Fanon.
And what he points to, like, with regards to what needs to be done to actually undo the economic inequalities of South Africa, yeah, that needs urgent addressing. And like, it is causing violence right now, but it needs to be covered. It needs to be taken over by a post-colonial government. I mean, I don't think you can solve the problem with just violence. I think you need to have. I mean, like, we support, or at least I support, one democratic state, full rate of return for everybody, and everybody wants a state should be able to live in peace. And then you have a structure like that. But go on.
Like saying that decolonial action will require violence is meaningless because it's obvious. Challenging any kind of deeply entrenched power structure is always going to involve conflict. That's like a unavoidable fact of politics. You can't get around that. So the question isn't like, okay, so what do you mean by violence, right? By violence, do you mean like some kind of big LARPy revolution, well, okay, great, like phenomenal. We've reduced everything down to like the lowest common denominator. What do we mean really, right? Like even in South Africa's case, there's been a lot of violence in the form of political violence through actions taken by the government and police that are related to an effort to, you know, sort of like address the post-apartheid inequality. Not very successful efforts, but like, yeah, that's just a part of government, you know? Certainly violence is a part of the status quo right now in the Israel-Palestine conflict.
You want to jump in? Be more specific about phenomenon.
Yeah, no, what I'm stating and to what you just referenced right now is you keep saying this whole thing of like free democratic state for everybody. Like, what right?
Bosch, decolonization doesn't require violence. That's stupid. It requires true equality and nothing else. Yeah, find me an example of anywhere on Earth where something like that happened without violence. By violence here, I'm talking about political violence. I mean, any kind of like massive conflict between power structures is going to involve it. You know, political violence doesn't literally mean like a big riot or whatever, or like, you know, targeted attacks on people. It's about like broader social conflict, the violence of social conflict, which is an unavoidable component of any big social change. The ideal, of course, would be to minimize it and to, you know, make it as sort of like morally defensible as possible. Was Little Rock 9 violent? I would say so, yeah. Nationalizing paratroopers to send them in to have soldiers guarding like black children as they entered a school. I would consider that an aspect of political violence. I would also consider, for example, wealth redistribution to be a form of political violence. You are, after all, literally taking people's resources and moving them elsewhere. I think one of the big issues with liberalism is an inability to understand how political violence is part and parcel to the existing system, but an oversensitivity to its existence in other systems. For example, the status quo right now in Israel relies on massive violence, enormous amounts of violence. The status quo in Israel right now depends upon an unbelievable amount of violence. But you bring up any like potential solution and it's like, oh, well, that would cause problems, that would cause problems, that would cause... How many problems would they cause compared to the status quo? And why is the status quo's violence accepted by default as a kind of like unavoidable norm, whereas any potential violence in the future, you know, would not be, right? How many Americans are arrested, brutalized by cops, or killed by them? You know, how many people die in poverty because they don't have access to health care that could very well be provided to them in a better system? When lobbyists convince politicians to vote against universal health care, are those lobbyists not ones with blood on their hands? Are the politicians not? A lot of violence is invisible and systemic. And when systems are challenged, those challenges are usually met with violence that is a lot more overt, a lot more direct, because you've kind of like, you know, pulled the mask off the system to an extent. That doesn't mean all violence in the name of decolonization or whatever else is morally good. It's not. There are plenty of ways to do that wrong. But it does mean that you have to at least be realistic about like the conversation and what, you know, what realistically you can do. Anyway, let's just listen through the...
Do these Europeans have to have a say within this state?
Oh, no, I'm not saying like wait for the Israelis to allow for full right of return. I think that should be imposed by the UN and...
Right.
Yeah.
100%, but that's what I'm saying, like, these Europeans have no right, no
so
claim
expulsion for people who who don't have ancestry from there. I mean, I asked you that, and you said
no. You keep pushing this. I'm not promoting some white genocide aspect.
No one's saying white genocide. No one's saying white genocide.
That's what you're referring to when you keep talking about.
No, we're not.
Wait. Okay. So wait a second.
Expulsion is not genocide.
Hold on. Wait a second. So, all right, so how is it that, so they're there, but they don't, there's no, they never get any type of rights in the future society, or they don't have a right in the initial phases of a unified state?
Yeah.
The latter.
Yes.
Okay.
Because they're still an immediate threat, and we're seeing that.
Okay, so this would just be apartheid again, but in the other direction. I feel like there are better ways to address the Israeli-Palestinian conflict than just doing double reverse, backflip, sick, nasty, grind off the rail apartheid. You know?
In South Africa, where these white supremacists are just, you know, biding their time. And they're
the big problem with the problem in South Africa would not be fixed by an effort to dispossess white South Africans of their rights. That would exacerbate a lot of these issues. The big issue in South Africa is that even after you get rid of apartheid, so much power is held by white South Africans that like it's really, really, really difficult to meaningfully and practically unroot their disproportionate influence, right? If you want to fix that, you can redistribute wealth without literally subjecting a racial class to apartheid. I don't think South Africa should pass a law saying, hey, if you're white, give your shit. I do think South Africa could pretty easily pass a law saying, hey, for those who acquired their wealth during this period of time, or from industries that were created or enriched during this period of time, then, time to fork it over, baby. And that would functionally do the same thing, but without the apartheid. Like, you don't want to create literal different sets of rules for different races. We're just talking about, land reform and wealth redistribution. And I think you can go pretty radical with it too. Just, don't do apartheid.
So I guess, I mean, from your perspective, if you perceive my sense that is incredibly theoretical and is not possible in practice, and you define that as liberal Zionism, then I guess I am, in your view, a liberal Zionist, and that makes sense.
But you said it yourself that you wouldn't call yourself anti-Zionist, right? Unless it was... Sorry?
Hold on for a second. So we're not talking about sound. We're saying like Orhan Pappy's also
isn't apartheiding against the wealthy also ethically wrong. You can't apartheid against wealth. When you're setting a different set of rules for people of a given race, you're targeting a intrinsic, socially identifiable component of their being. Lamau, it was a joke. Oh, okay. Well, then I'll answer anyway as though it wasn't. But if you're targeting people based on your wealth, you're not actually targeting people. You're targeting the wealth. Like, and what's more, disproportionate wealth accumulation is an actual social problem worth addressing. If you had a different set of rules for people who are all worth over like $1 million or whatever, you're going after the wealth there and the disproportionate accumulation of that wealth. There's not really a comparison to be made with like, oh, well, because of your skin color, you just have to have worse systems to rely on,
So liberal Zionists, we're also saying that Jeff Halper...
Yes, and that's the issue with always referring to them. I have an issue with Norm Finkelstein as well.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but
you're referring to people who want a continued existence of Israel to exist in one form or another.
No, that's not...
Norm Finkelstein stated himself, I'm not an enemy of Israel when he was banned.
I didn't mention Norm Finkelstein.
No, I did.
I'm talking about people who are specifically on the issue of decolonized Palestine. Jeff Halper wrote a book on that. Do you have an issue with Jeff Halper?
Yes, I do. I 100%, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, all right, okay. Well,
he's a settler. He wants to be there still.
Then listen. You're right.
He's European.
Okay, listen. On your definitions, you are correct. And all I can tell you...
What is anti-Zionist, Sam?
Wait.
What is anti-Zionist?
I've already conceded the point. You're right. I think
this really does feel like more magic words nonsense, like with the obsession with specific terms rather than reaching some kind of like understanding of concept.
You know all of the anti-Zionists, and you guys have your agenda, and that's it. You're right. You're right. You've won the conversation.
Yeah. Okay. This is an issue that we have with you white liberals.
Okay, I got it.
Saying this kind of like, oh, you're right. Oh, you're better than, like, bro, like.
No, I didn't say you're better.
I understand that's active, right?
I want to make it very clear.
Of, like,
no.
Of being self-righteous, indignation.
I'm not being.
Always.
No, dude. You in this conversation, listen. I get what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. You're saying that there must be a total overthrow that must take place, that all of the European implants that have come in and colonized this must be completely disempowered in that first instance in setting up a new Palestine, let's call it.
I think one thing that you could do that wouldn't be as psychotic as what this guy is advocating for, but might actually be a reasonable solution, is you could do for Palestinians what Rojava has done with women. Because women's issues are a bit of a big deal in the Middle East, as you can imagine. There's like a separate political council, a government, effectively, of women, ruling on women's issues and on issues in general. I think if you had something like that in any kind of decolonized Israel, where you had like a Palestinian legislature that has to effectively like sign off on anything that happens. So basically, like, imagine you have like one regular legislature where everyone votes in your candidate, and some of them are like Jewish and some are Arab or whatever else, right? And then you have a separate parallel legislature, which is basically like an oversight committee where, and it's Palestinians, and they have the ability to like veto or overlook. Now, obviously, as I've proposed this right now, there are many flaws in the suggestion, but there are versions of this, varying levels of power you could give that secondary council that would give kind of like, rather than just preventing Israeli Jews from having a voice in government, you would make sure, though, there's a kind of like indigenous oversight, if that makes any sense. There's a workable version of this, I feel.
Just for the sake of it, we don't know what the name of it would be, but let's just assume it's Palestine. And you're saying, and unless that happens, it is not a legitimate decolonization process. And I am conceding this point to you. Yeah. I don't know what else. You want me to tell you? I happen to think.
Well, the issue is why not promote that?
Because I think promoting that is a pipe dream.
Yep.
It is completely divorced of the reality that exists. And if you think millions of people are going to say, okay, we're not going to do that, then I honestly think that you are not in touch with reality. The theory that you can have may be correct, and I am conceding it. And if that makes me a liberal Zionist, because I have that position, I feel like relative to the company that you have put me in, I'm not terribly concerned about that. But I'm telling you that your position is, I think, completely fantastical. And I do.
I don't know how effective it would be in this conversation. I do wish that Sam and Emma would kind of like propose the limits of what they think would be an acceptable version of what the guy is suggesting, but obviously it probably wouldn't actually change anything. In my experience when talking to people like this, it's all magic words to them. They like buzzwords, they like big sweeping statements and conclusions, but all of it is done for them, not for the world. You know, like it doesn't actually matter.
You're gone. You're a settler. Of course, you believe that it's an improbability, right?
No,
you know,
I don't.
He's a settler? Is that true? Is Sam a settler?
Our friends like capitalism.
I don't think it's an improbability.
Capitalist realism.
No, I don't think it's an
But there is a settler realism.
Capitalist real. Okay, settler realism. Gotcha.
There's a settler realism as well in play, right? That you cannot perceive the fact that you will lose power. Right?
No. I can perceive it.
Wait. Does he think Sam is like calling in from Israel? Is Sam calling in from Israel? Sam, I thought better of you. I
15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Seriously though, aren't they in New York or something, right?
Who's the we here, actually? No. Actually, I want you to expand on the fact that you just brought up Norm Finkelstein and you gratuitously to talk about. And when you say we, who are you referring to when you're talking about Sam, huh?
What do you mean? Settlers, Europeans.
Hold on.
You're talking about white people, or are you talking about Jewish people?
No. I mean,
white people. Why are you pulling this anti-Semitism thing? Not even Sam's pulling it.
Well, if the shoe fits.
Well, normally I wouldn't, but like talking about you people have a settler realism attitude and calling Sam a settler when talking about Israeli Jews needing to be politically dispossessed and Sam being Jewish. Just it's a charitability thing. It's just like a very weird thing to insist on. I don't know. I don't know how Sam is a settler. Maybe he's doing wacky stuff I'm not familiar with.
No, I think, like, look.
Have some self-respect. Okay,
listen, I think within the context of this country, but, like, why, like,
yeah,
I also
of course.
think.
Thank you for understanding that.
No, I do. I do understand it. I also think the idea that the white Europeans in this country are going to give up the levers of power is also fantastical.
Yeah, not peacefully, that's for sure.
No, listen. So I don't.
Look
like,
how Emma
but dude, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. No. Wait a second. Listen.
See, the primary interest of the caller seems to be distinguishing themselves from, like, the presumed liberal attitude. Like, look at the fuming liberals who are upset with my radical suggestion that we should, quote, use violence to decolonize. The Joker laugh? Well, in my experience, people who do that kind of, like, forced fake laugh are usually doing it because they understand they don't really have that much to offer except reinforcement of the perceived distinction between them and the people they're talking to, right? Like, you know, you're a liberal, I'm a based and red-pilled leftist or whatever. So, in lieu of an argument, you can kind of, like, defer to the, like, it doesn't matter what we say here because, you know, your words are meaningless to me. I've seen through your game. That's why I'm laughing at it. It's so transparent. The liberal settler realist game. The thing that this caller probably despises me personally, so it's not like I could get through to them. Maybe they'll see this, like maybe they'll see this video. And the thing that because I'm sort of like interceding here from, you know, beyond the veil of space and time to say this, the thing that I would want to see or ask is like, don't you think it's important to structure your suggestions for how to improve the world in a way that is likely to actually happen? So one might say to that, oh, well, you are also doing settler realism. You can do this stuff. And the answer to that I have to say is like, it can happen, but it's not going to here. The Palestinians don't have the ability to engage in any kind of violent overthrow of the Israeli state, even if that had good outcomes. And mind you, good outcomes rarely follow gigantic, like bloody, racially or ethnically aligned overthrows. That usually leads to a lot of suffering for everyone. But even if it wasn't for that, the Israeli state is a modern military, and the Palestinians in Israel aren't a military. The closest thing they have is Hamas and the backing of, like, you know, Iranian-supported groups like the Houthis or Hezbollah. But, like, the Hezbollah is big, but let's not kid ourselves here. Like, the Israeli government has nukes. There's not really a power balance here. It's not really practical to just say, like, oh, well, it'll take violence. Okay, sure, like, let's assume that it'll take violence to improve this. What can we actually do? Like, what can actually be done? What should we be pushing for or advocating for? And in my experience, this point right here is where the conversation stops and then just cycles in place forever. Because I think that usually when people take issue with statements like that, they don't actually care about the pragmatic answer. They interpret my call for pragmatism as a kind of like milquetoast liberal centrism at best, and at worst, a malicious enabling of the status quo. But unfortunately, pragmatism is not centrism, and pragmatism is not a malicious enabling of the status quo. Pragmatism is just the thing that makes things happen. It's just kind of a process. Pragmatism definitionally is like the things that can happen. So therefore, everything that ever happens is under it fits within the purview of pragmatic action. Vosh bait in chat. Vosh, you are a settler. This is a colonist state. Indigenous people maintain legal independence, haven't been properly absorbed. Like, stop being a white supremacist about this. Facts are facts, no matter how much they hurt your fifis. Is this bait? You were watching me play Tomb Raider last night. You were asking me my opinion on a mace, like as medieval weapons. Is this bait? He said fifis, dude. Has to be bait. I can't tell anymore. I can't tell with anyone anymore. No, I don't think it's bait. This is the person who said decolonization doesn't require violence. That's stupid. It requires true equality and nothing else. I think they're just having a normal one. But they watched my game stream. I don't want to fight.
I don't understand what you get out of this. Like, you're talking about a
Eurocentric
Yeah, no. I mean,
Propaganda?
but there's no one who's listening to this show who's watching YouTube right now.
Vosh, you do have a blind spot, Sam Seeds. I don't even know what you're talking about, Jumpfall. I don't even know what your comments were in response
Who is, it doesn't necessarily think that it is, what you're suggesting isn't impossible. And you're saying that there needs to be a violent overthrow, revolution of the United States.
I'm not saying that's what it is. That's reality. I'm not promoting anything here.
You mock the idea that Sam is a settler. It's a fact. Okay. All right. I mean, if you want to define settler as a person who lives in any country that has colonized indigenous people, that means settler would include, like, most humans, and if you think that's a useful definition to go by, then okay. Like, that would be, like, a lot. Like literally what countries don't have, like, a bad relationship with the indigenous population they've acquired? I guess Bolivia is, like, a uniquely indigenous-run country under Morales. Even then, though, I prefer to use settler to refer to people who, like, actively engage in the process of moving to a new country or area, like, you know, settling. Right? So, like, I wouldn't call modern-day white South Africans settlers. I would certainly call them beneficiaries of a white supremacist state. I would call the original Dutch who came back into South Africa way back in the day settlers. And then they constructed a settler colonial state because they were settlers who engaged in colonialism in the construction of the South African state. But over time, even though it maintained its, like, status as a settler colonial state and settler colonial project, the individual white South Africans in South Africa were no longer settlers because they weren't settling, they were just born there, you know? So that's what I use settler to mean. I don't think that's racist. I just think that's a helpful semantic distinction. It's not really about minimizing anything. All right. I mean, whatever.
Okay. Okay. You're saying that's what I mean by there needs to be.
Yeah.
Right? That's it's a necessity. There needs to be a violent overthrow of the U.S. government, and anything short of that is useless. I'm asking now. Is useless or a waste of time or what?
No. My main argument here is what you're promoting in the way that you're approaching it by trying to redefine what anti-Zionism is, right? Again, I have made it
very explicitly clear that I've never contemplated myself as a Zionist or an anti-Zionist, ever. The only time
neutral on a moving train.
What's that?
You're neutral on a moving train.
I've never defined myself.
I'm anti-Zionist, sort of putting my hand up in the air, like a kid in the classroom.
As you just accused me of saying that what I'm doing is anti-Zionism. And I have said explicitly many times, I have never considered myself a Zionist or an anti-Zionist. I've never...
Yeah, Sam doesn't tend to like labels. The stuff he says about the plight of the Palestinian people is very sympathetic. So, like, his aversion to labels aside, you know, whatever.
I don't label myself. I don't. Listen, I just simply don't. You just accuse me of using...
No Jewish state at all. I don't really like the idea of any state being thought of as the innate possession of any ethnic, racial, or religious group. I don't like states to begin with, but if states are going to have any kind of designation for who they're for, it should be geographic, literally the people within the borders. And even that I don't like, because then you get shit like people saying, oh, who gives a f about Mexicans? We're in America, we should care about our own. It's like, well, we're all citizens of the world, you know? Pardon me for sounding like a hippie, but it's true.
A term that I've never employed. And
no, you tried to redefine what anti-Zionism is as simply being anti-apartheid.
When?
And I gave you even the date of the phone half. 11/1, right before the end of the year, in 2023.
Okay.
11/1/2023.
On November 1st, I
literally stated.
I stated what? Do you have the whole quote? Because I know exactly what it was.
Then go ahead.
It was. I was in a conversation.
I would never.
I would.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I would never define myself as a Zionist or an anti-Zionist. I've never done that. And yes.
Actually, can we switch?
Yes, and
let me just switch up here. Let me just one thing. You invoke Fanon. Elaborate.
So I'm sympathizing with Sam here, mostly because I know how frustrating it is to talk to people who act like this.
Squad, there he is. Open fire.
You invoke Fanon and then punt it to me. Elaborate the relevant point you brought his name.
No, I was referencing towards Sam asked how. I understand you're the leftist guard dog here.
No,
I get that your boss is your best friend.
I'm saying elaborate. You have the chance. Elaborate on Fanon, the relevant. You brought his name up. Go on.
Hold on.
Well, he was asking how, and I said through right.
That's all you got to say. Just violence. Fanon equals violence.
No,
that's all you have to say.
He asked me a specific question, and I answered.
Okay.
If you want to go through a whole
We're dancing all over the place.
Your job. I understand.
Is Yasser Arafat, was he an anti-Zionist?
He was a sellout. Right, the Palestinian Authority is a sellout, and you mentioned yourself that you wanted to see him burn alongside
Ariel
which
Sharon.
Prime Minister did you mention? Ariel Sharon. Why would you equate those two? Why would you equate the colonizer with the colonizer? Well, because I know you weren't referencing to him. I'm selling out the Palestinian liberation. So why did you equate those two things?
Why did I equate Arafat and because I both think they contributed to.
This is the issue.
Okay, well, but dude, here's the issue. No, here's the issue. You gotta get your own show. You gotta get your own.
Did they not both? Isn't that an objective fact? Who could argue against that? The Palestinians have historically not had the best representation. Even in the times when they've been relatively well represented, it's always kind of conditional, you know? It's difficult to be well represented when you're in an environment that's that discriminatory. You know, like the material circumstances are definitely not leaning in their favor, I guess. I mean, this is just obsession over like a specific thing said. Again, it's like, don't care about ideas, just like words.
Own YouTube show.
Hey,
because
deculturation,
that's all
this is where I started.
you
Call out people
care
like you.
about. That's all you care about.
Deculturation, there it is. Deculturation.
Okay.
Check out Black Power Media, Breakthrough News, who actually do real journalism.
Yeah, see, these people are all the same, man. Like, every time, buzzword, I'm more virtuous than you, I'm woker than you. Here are my, like, incredibly wedge, like, points that I want to make, even though I'm not going to make any effort to actually explain them. Also, I'm actually only here to promote my own thing because I never came in here with the intent of changing anyone's mind. Like, I came into this knowing that it was going to be unproductive and I had very little to say, so... Excuse me. So, like, you know, here's me,
Okay.
Check out Black Power Media, Breakthrough...
Black Power Media. They can sort of, like, parasitically leech a following off of Doomers. Oh, they're posting a lot. Not a lot of views, though. Is it bad? Black Power Media? I don't know if it's bad. I'm pretty sure you checked them out. You watched them? Did I watch them? Oh, no. They post a lot. God damn. Alright, well, I guess I respect the grind. This is the network he works for, and it's unironically funded by Russia. Breakthrough News. This isn't the thing I said. Is it funded by Russia? I don't know. We're not getting to a whole thing right now. It was the TSL. Posted a show on Radio Sputnik, Argument State Media, Breakthrough News. Huh. Campists? Well, alright. I guess that's the deal. This is one of the reasons why I don't really, like, seek out debates anymore, because I feel like this is the only kind of debate you can really get. I don't have a, like, boomer centrist audience to call in and innocently ask questions, but a lot of the people you talk to don't care about convincing anyone. They barely even care about their own positions. They're just desperately trying to scrape off some attention and clout. Like, it's very transparent. Nobody has any principles. Yeah, seriously, Kowalski.
News, who actually do real journalism.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I'll take care. Keep being white.
Yeah,
keep being white. Like, see, it's there's no actual effort to convince anyone. It's just an effect. The purpose of this isn't to pull over people from the majority report. The purpose of this is to be able to go back to his channel and go, look at how I own Sam Cedar, that settler white piece of shit, by calling him white or something. You know, like the goal isn't. It's like a very insular, like detached perspective. It's not fun to engage with.
I probably will.
I think it's a good chance we'll stay white out. We'll still be white after this call.
I mean,
Wow, they admit it. They admit that they're gonna stay white. Exposed. Exposed. It's so useless, really boring behavior. Venomfly, I think that's it. Besides everything else, like leaving aside the fact that I just get irritated dealing with people who don't have real principles or aren't actually trying to engage, it's just boring. That caller was pretty boring. He would have been boring if I had talked to him too. I've heard these perspectives before, and if nothing else, like, there is real entertainment in people's sincerity. But when they're insincere, and I've heard their talking points before, it's like it's nothing. Like, I'm basically just waiting for the other shoe to drop and them admitting they don't care what I have to say or what I believe or whatever else. You were right, this guy does hate you. He's got a video on his YouTube channel, Deculturation, with Vosh exposed again in the title from a couple weeks ago. That doesn't surprise me. I feel like disliking me is a extremely reliable, like, litmus test for people's own moral quality. PSL, who the caller works with, is literally funded by Goldman Sachs. Is that true? Goldman Sachs funds Party for Socialism and Liberation, specifically People's Forum, whose 2 executive officers are PSL members Claudia de la Cruz and Manolo de los Santos. Well, if nothing else, we can we can be reassured in the knowledge that I am in fact not funded by Goldman Sachs. So you can all, I guess, take some comfort from that. Guys, I've got great news. You know, Super Tuesday just happened, which means a bunch of primary elections were settled. Lots of interesting stuff to go over. Happy to announce, though, that, you know, as bad as the GOP has been, it seems they are capable of change for the better. In North Carolina, the winner of the Republican gubernatorial primary is none other than a black man. So, you know, we're hitting new marks of progressivism. Let me open up this article. Hitler quoting candidate wins North Carolina Republican gubernatorial primary. Well, Mark Robinson, North Carolina's lieutenant governor, who has a history of making inflammatory comments and is said to abolish abortion rights, won the state's Republican nomination for governor. Robinson, North Carolina's first black lieutenant governor, with Democrat Josh Stein, hotly contested race in November. We need to win this one, guys. We really do. Robinson and Stein are attempting to succeed the current Democratic Governor Roy Cooper, who is term limited. Because Republicans already control North Carolina's legislature, a Robinson victory would give them a trifecta and unilateral control over policymaking in a critical battleground state. So that's pretty cool. Gotta win that one. Let's see. He's an NRA board member, of course he is. History of controversial statements. He describes COVID-19 as a globalist conspiracy to destroy Donald Trump. He means Jews. He criticized efforts to teach LGBTQ issues in sex education, referring to trans and gay people as, quote, filth. He has also said people who are gay are equivalent to what the cows leave behind, as well as maggots and flies. He implied at a campaign event last month that trans women should be arrested if they use women's restrooms. He once described the movie Black Panther as created by an agnostic Jew and put to film by a satanic Marxist. He then said it was, quote, only created to pull the shekels out of your Schwarze pockets. He quoted Hitler on Facebook in 2014 in a statement about racial pride. He defended the post in a speech last July, saying that quoting the Nazi leader doesn't equate to supporting him. Because you quoted Hitler, you support Hitler, he said. I guess every history book in America supports Hitler now. They all quote him. And then on the other side, on the Democrat side, if Stein were to win in November, he would be North Carolina's first Jewish governor. Robinson would be the state's first black governor. So there you go. Trump praised Robinson's rhetorical skills and called him Martin Luther King on steroids, presumably because he's also fat and black, so that was just the one association. He probably took this as a grievous insult, you know? Telling the Blittler guy, yeah, he's like, I'm okay. He's like, you know, only other black guy he'd remember, yeah. So that's cool. MLK was not fat. Okay, fine, big boned, big guy. Shut up. He almost called him Obama. He said like reverse Obama. You know, he's a good black guy like reverse Obama. This is like near maximum Blittler particles. Yeah, I'd say so. So, yeah. Wait, what was the exact statement that he said? Okay, here's the quote. History, who said it, #1. Pride in one's own race, and that does not imply contempt for other races, is also a normal and healthy sentiment. I have never regarded the Chinese or the Japanese as being inferior to ourselves. They have the right to be proud of their past, just as we have the right to be proud of the civilization to which we belong. And Hitler said that. That was something Hitler said. So, yeah. It's all pretty cool. What's this other article that I was given from The Advocate? 13 of the most batshit things North Carolina Republican governor candidate Mark Robertson said. He's compared homosexuality to pedophilia. Nice, nice. Transgender women should defecate in public. If you are confused, find a corner outside somewhere to go. We're not tearing society down because of this, he said. Would society really benefit from trans women shitting in alleys? I don't know if that would necessarily improve things. It's time to start reading quotes from Hitler and Stalin. Talking to an audience gathered at Moms for Liberty's Blessings of the Liberty Breakfast. Of course it's them. It's time to start reading quotes from fascist strongmen like Hitler and Stalin. Oh, but he includes Chairman Mao and Pol Pot as well. Maybe he's like a Paradox game player. One thing that I've noticed is that a lot of modern Nazis and far-right people don't actually care what the ideology of the far-right person is. They just like power. Nick Fuentes said his favorite strongman is probably Stalin. It's not, there isn't really like a strong commitment to any specific system of government or whatever. It's just like the aesthetic of power is what they care about. If a woman is pregnant, it's not her body anymore. Transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth. Calling queer people maggots and flies. Okay, we've seen these ones. Said Michelle Obama is a transgender woman. Said that black Democrats are slaves. You have to imagine this guy like really likes Candace Owens, right? Because Candace Owens is the other like turncoat token black conservative who weirdly defends Hitler, you know? Homosexuality claps. In response to the Pulse massacre in which 49 people were killed in a queer nightclub, Robinson still said that being gay is an abominable sin. Homosexuality is still an abominable sin, and I will not join in celebrating gay pride, nor will I fly their sacrilegious flag on my page. Shortly after calling reports of the Holocaust, quote, hogwash, Robinson went on the podcast of an alleged cult leader in 2019 and endorsed... Which cult leader? Excuse me? Is this Stefan Molyneux? Wait, this article is also not saying who the cult leader was. Okay. I wasn't able to find out who. Sorry. And he endorsed the host's remarks that Jewish bankers are one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The other 3? Muslim people, China, and the CIA. I know racists get elected all the time, but how is this piece of shit even considered? Well, most Republicans would probably disagree with this guy's statements, but most Republicans are also extremely in-group oriented, and they vote GOP down ticket. So it's the issue here isn't like every Republican in North Carolina is like vetting this guy and going, yeah, we agree. It's some of them are, to be sure, but most of them, I imagine, are just going after the person with the most backing and endorsement. This guy was lieutenant governor, and also Trump has endorsed him. So the problem with the GOP isn't just that it's full of Nazis, it's that the non-Nazis have never really had an issue working with the Nazis if they felt it wasn't too rhetorically damaging. Like, there are lots of people in the GOP who are not only not Nazis, but not ideological fascists. There are MAGA congressmen who will agree with everything Trump says and does, who are not ideological fascists. They don't like wake up and think about like the political, preferability of fascism. They're just, hungry, dishonest power seekers, right? So their problem isn't so much that they believe those things, it's that they're willing to work with those people to attain power. And in the long run, functionally, the difference between these two is minimal. Wouldn't be surprised if the moon landing on 9/11 was fake. Beyonce's music has a satanic message. True. I don't know anything about Beyonce's music. Robinson stands by everything he said. The Republican defended all of his Facebook posts in a 2020 interview with local outlet WRAL, saying, I don't back up from them a bit. More recently, Robinson has attempted to distance himself from anti-Semitism by claiming to support Israel. Curious. Weird how, like, an obvious Nazi seems capable of supporting Israel. Wild, huh? This guy is doing the, like, the alt-right, Radcon Christian conservative thing really, really well. That seems to be the underlying motivator here. Oh, there's even more of this shit on the Wikipedia page. In March 2023, more of Robinson's past social media statements emerged, including Facebook posts appearing to call the figure of 6 million Jews perishing in the Holocaust into question. For example, Robinson wrote, "This foolishness about Hitler disarming millions of Jews and then marching them off to concentration camps, a bunch of hogwash." And, quote, "There is a reason the liberal media fills the airwaves with programs about the Nazi and the, quote, 6 million Jews they murdered." Both Democrats and Republicans criticized Robinson's statements, and then he immediately jumped to supporting Israel. The Wikipedia page talks about how when he was ranting about Black Panther, he used advanced racism with a Yiddish slur for black people. The Schwarza thing? Yeah. The looming pandemic I'm most worried about is socialism. What was he cooking? Over 7 years, he used his Facebook page to attack immigrants, members of the LGBT community, Jews, and black people. In a 2013 post, he wrote the slogan, "White pride was not racist," writing, "I am tired of blacks and Mexicans running around shouting about being mocked or being proud of their race." Robinson later wrote, "Note to liberals, I'll accept gay pride when you accept white pride." In other posts, Robinson mocked Chinese accents, referred to African Americans using ethnic slurs, including, I can't even say these, promoted various conspiracy theories, Illuminati, Barack Obama is a top-ranking demon, Ellen DeGeneres in Satan's army. Robinson called the civil rights movement a communist plot to subvert capitalism and free choice. He has called Martin Luther King Jr. a communist and ersatz pastor. Oh, that makes Trump's statement so much funnier. It's literally like two different kinds of racism clashing, where Donald Trump, who is very racist, is just thinking like, oh, you know, how many black people do I know? Oh, he's like MLK, and this guy just has to seethe about it because he can't like rebuke Trump. Oh my God. He defended the Kent State Massacre of 1970. What is this guy cooking? It's like his entire bloodline was cursed by a demon to take every wrong position possible. What would even lead you to have this opinion? Called the Parkland shooting survivors spoiled, angry, know-it-all children. Spoiled little bastards. Media prostitutes. He said mass shootings are karma for abortion and has baselessly placed blame on them. For them on gun. This guy won the North Carolina gubernatorial primary. He won the primary. He has filed for bankruptcy on 3 occasions. He's been sued several times for non-payment of debts. In 2012, Robinson's landlord sued him for failure to pay around $2,000 in rent. Oh man, do you know what this guy would have to say about another black man who had to be evicted because he failed to pay his rent to the landlord and also has gone bankrupt 3 times? I bet this guy would have a lot of choice words for a black man in his position who isn't him. He did not pay 7 years of federal income tax. He said he was unaware he had an unpaid vehicle tax, adding, "I'm not very good at math." Holy shit. Oh my God. There's like so much here. There's like so much you could say. Holy shit, dude. Oh my God. Yeah, where do you start? The most accurate stuff you could say about him. Jesus Christ. I don't think a writer could come up with a character like him. They did. It was in a show called The Boondocks. Except, I guess, even then, this guy is a lot worse than that guy. I don't... Okay, I feel like I've already said pretty much everything I can say about this guy. So, to add on to it, I'll just say, you have to understand your enemy here. This guy is obviously, like, about as bad of a human being as he can be. So, you can just interpret from my position on that any number of very mean words you could say about him. The interesting thing isn't how bad he is, because it's very, and we've said it, and there's not much more to say, but rather, like, what the nature of this guy's victory is. Now, again, I've said this before, most Republican voters are fascist in the sense that they align with fascism politically, not in the sense that they're ideological fascists. Now, the difference between these two things is very important, because sometimes it really changes how you have to, like, strategize or deal with people, right? An ideological fascist is a person who consciously believes in the ideology of fascism. most fascists are not ideological fascists. They're people who fall into the lies or the hate or whatever else that fascists push to bring more people into their ideology. A good comparison to this would be the difference between an ideological socialist and a person who is incidentally socialist. An ideological socialist would be like, you know, a person who reads the theory, who has strong opinions on very specific economic topics, whereas a person who is incidentally or associatively socialist might be somebody who just thinks that, you know, the fat cat bosses have been taken from us too much and it's time for us to, you know, workers deserve more, yeah, and they might not have like very strong ideological inclinations, or like very specific understanding of the system that they're defending or enabling, but they're kind of like, you know, in the lead. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? They're aligned. Most Republicans are not ideological fascists. So the reason why people like this are able to win their elections is because the Republican Party has always been extremely comfortable working with fascists. Over the past 10 years, there's been a shift where before the fascists, ideological fascists, I mean to say, were relatively few in number. Most of the fascist stuff the GOP promoted was just like the right wing of the neoconservatism that dominated the party, and the ideological fascists had to stay like fairly quiet. You know, like there were like norms and modes of decorum they had to abide by. Now that's changing. Trump is not an ideological fascist. He's just a self-serving megalomaniac. But the fact that he's given way to people being mask off about far-right politics means the ideological fascists, like Mark Robinson, get to be louder. And because he operates with Trump's endorsement, he's like the next MLK. I like how Trump didn't even say he's like MLK. He also said that he's eloquent. That's literally the articulate thing. He's so well-spoken. He's like MLK. It's like a joke. It's like the joke answer of what Donald Trump would say if there was an extremely racist black man he was going to endorse. You know, it's so funny. Anyway, basically, it's mostly a matter of the voters not really understanding what it is they're voting for. So I think that as bad as this guy is, it's possible that he does end up being an optical liability. The GOP at the moment is not doing a very good job of quality control on its candidates. Remember how back in the 2022 midterms, a bunch of Moms for Liberty endorsed candidates lost? Like, almost all of them did. The like, fascist, like, parent-teacher groups endorsed a bunch of people, like dozens. And almost all of them lost because they ended up being less popular than either the Democrat opposition or more moderate Republicans. I remember that. So there is like a big lack of quality control, and I feel like the way to respond to this would just be to like point out everything this guy has done and said and say, yeah, he was endorsed by Trump, who called him like MLK, you know? I like you have to point this stuff out, man. Democrats are such pussies. They're so afraid to be direct and upfront when it comes to pointing out the failings of their opposition. Like, they should be calling Donald Trump a pedophile. Epstein friend. They don't. Civility, whatever else. He's a huge liability. His abortion stance is going to drive women out of the polls in North Carolina. Do you have any idea how many effective, like, attack ads you could run on North Carolina TV? All you'd have to do is, like, list this guy's quotes with, like, his face in the background. You know what I mean? We'll see if they do. Why didn't they? Only the primaries have happened. The general election hasn't happened. He hasn't won the gubernatorial seat yet. The Democrats, you mean, facetious? It's possible, but Democrats have f***ed up with that before, so... Read on Twitter that most non-hyper-mega Trump supporters don't actually know things he said. Yeah, of course, yeah. Most American voters don't know the statements of every candidate they vote for. Yeah, for sure, 100%. We'll see how it goes. The cult leader he was interviewed at? Hyung Jin Moon? Oh, I don't know this one. Okay, gotcha. Oh, a Unification Church guy. Okay, cool. Love to see that intersectionality. Why are the primaries even being held if everyone knows who the nominees are? We didn't. We didn't know who the nominee for the North Carolina governor is until they had the primary. Bosch, I don't understand how Republicans get away with saying the economy is in shambles when the economy is doing shockingly good. Sorry, if you believe the economy is doing well, it's because you're a neoliberal wonk who listens to things like data. The average person in America feels a lot of economic anxiety at the moment, and that matters far more than any, like, abstract graph that comes to, like, income or whatever the okay? Like, sorry, economic well-being is vibes. People who reduce it down to like a pure data science where it's like, oh, actually, well, if you do the 7 trillion calculations to determine what people's income is relative to blah, blah, blah. Like, sorry, no, you're not getting over the fact that people are like, you know, the gig economy has run out of control. People are insecure in their income. There's no job security anymore. Inflation ran wild for a while, and now everything at the supermarket costs twice what it did 5 years ago. Like, you can't, even if all of these things are accounted for in other ways, which they aren't, you can't get around that. Rent costs, good lord, the rent costs, the availability of housing. The data isn't there for that either, Vosh. Neolibs just select for data that looks good, like raw GDP. Yeah, I understand the complexity of these equations, and I do think that, like we're not in a recession, for example. It is objectively the case that we're rebounding economically really well, but we doesn't mean the working class. It means the nation of America, and that ain't like an evenly split pie, you know? It's also possible for things to be doing really well economically, but for people to still be miserable, because the way things are doing well economically is through systems that make people, well, miserable, right? Like, the gig economy makes people miserable. You can up people's income all you want. It doesn't change that fact. Housing prices, everything, you know? The Democrats should really, really, really stop trying to sell this, like, hey, America's already good the way it is bullshit, because people just don't feel that way. And politics is about giving people narratives about how you're going to improve the country, and the country needs improvement. It's not dishonest to say, hey, I know people are struggling right now. Yes, thank you. I hate liberal anti-pop. Yeah, because a bunch of liberals, spineless, dickless liberals, are obsessed with the, you know, with the, like, high they feel from feeling like an intellectual who gets to disprove the emotional, whiny anxieties of hundreds of millions of people, you know? Like, what all these, you know, single mothers and college students who are eating ramen and people who can't find a place to rent without splitting it between 3 roommates, blah, blah, what they failed to realize is, and then they point at, like, a graph in 1-point font times New Roman pages and pages, like, wow, look at these equations, you know? Like, yeah, no. If people feel economic anxiety, if people think that the economy is, like, not doing well, that is a problem in and of itself, and it's not one that's going to be fixed by smarmily going up to people and saying, well, actually, you know, look at this graph, you know? That doesn't fix anything. And I don't think the smarmy liberals who do this think it fixes anything either. I think they just like feeling smarter than, like, the average voter, which is just a really dumb way to approach politics. I used to live with an economics grad student, and he literally just got off on saying everyone who feels miserable actually isn't. Wonder why people don't like economics students. They aren't liberals. No, we're describing a liberal tendency here, for sure.
Gordon Freeman, you finally found us. This is the nothing stands in the way of our errant knight in shining high and reactive armor.
Guess not.
Right then. This way, Dr. Freeman. We've been expecting you.
Oh, Jesus. You're not scared, are you?
What you see before you is the supply for our first survey team. Quite a few handsome specimens collected brought back this way. Before the survey members started being collected themselves, that is. These readings have given us reason to suspect that there is an immense portal over there, created and maintained by the intense concentration of a single powerful being. I'm sure that you will know it when you see it. I am loath to say this, Gordon, but you must kill it.
Yeah, you better kill it. No ifs, ands, or asses about it.
Of course, you owe us nothing, Dr. Freeman. But you've come this far. You know as much about these creatures as anyone.
Enough to know that if you don't wipe it out, well, let's put it this way. There ain't gonna be much for you to come home to.
Yes. So if you're willing, my colleague is waiting for you at the main portal controls. Dr. Steinman will open the gates for you. And don't let Hunter's brash attitude frighten you. We've all been a wee bit rankled since the incident. He'll equip you with the proper armaments for the task ahead. Do hurry.
Dr. Freeman, so glad you made it. I've one final accoutrement for you. This is the long jump module. I created it expressly for navigation in the world beyond. I certainly hope you've received long jump training, because once you're in Zen, you'll need it.
Hello, Freeman! I'm up here! Practice your long jump if you must, but hurry up! All right, I can open the portal now. The process is complicated, and once it has begun, I must not be interrupted or I'll have to start all over again. Don't enter the beam until I give the okay. Understood? I will begin. Almost there, Freeman. Get yourself into position. Ready. Let's roll. Now!